everyone. Let's begin our August business meeting of our area school district. Mr. Muscatello, roll call, please. Thank you.
Mrs. Dalton.
Here.
Dr. Boston is excused. Excuse me, my mic didn't turn on. Mrs. Eckenrode.
Here.
Mr. Hardesty.
Here.
Mr. Larch.
Here.
Mr. Plenick is excused. Mrs. Williams.
Here.
Mrs. Tate.
Here.
Mrs. Smiley.
Here.
Myself. Mr. Johnston. Here. Mrs. Dolges is excused. Mrs. Zeglin.
Here.
Mr. Grimaldi is excused. Mr. Dalton.
Here.
Mr. Gramling.
Here.
Mr. Saffron.
Here. Thank you very much. Mrs. Eckenrode, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will, Mr. Hardesty. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kindly. Any presentations, Mr. Johnston?
There are none this evening, Mr. Hardesty.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to tonight's agenda? If not, may we have a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
All right.
I'm sorry. I have a motion by Mrs. Eckenrode and a second by Mrs. Tate.
Voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Number 5, do we have any citizens' remarks, Mr. Muscatello?
We do not.
All right. As we have been, tell everyone that's watching how they can get in contact with us if need be.
Sure. So if you want to submit a question to the board, either prior to the board meeting or at any time for that matter, you can submit a question to boardquestions@pennsmanor.org.
Thank you very kindly. After your review, every one of the minutes of all the meetings, may we have a motion to approve the minutes as printed or amend if necessary?
I make the motion.
I'll second. Thank you.
I have a motion by Mrs. Dalton and a second by Mr. Larch.
In favor, yay.
Yay.
Against, nay. Yays have it. All right, we have our business reports. They're in your packets. May we have a motion to approve the financial reports as printed?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Mrs. Smiley and a second by Mrs. Dalton.
Any questions or concerns? Roll call, Mr. Muscatello.
Mrs. Dalton.
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode.
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty.
Yes.
Mr. Larch.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Mrs. Tate.
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Presentation of bills. Our business office has prepared and presented the following bills for payment. General account for the year 2021, 2022, $770,021.67. No bills for capital reserve, no bills in the cafeteria. May we have a motion to authorize payment of these bills as presented?
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Eckenrode and a second by Mrs. Tate.
Thank you. Questions or concerns concerning the bills? Roll call, Mr. Muscatello.
Mrs. Dalton.
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode.
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty.
Yes.
Mr. Larch.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Mrs. Tate.
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, do we have any program updates for this evening?
We have none this evening, Mr. Hardesty.
All right, we're going to move into reports. Superintendent report by Mr. Johnston.
Thank you, sir. This evening, I just want to remind all of you and everyone that's listening that we have approved a health and safety plan. That health and safety plan is following the guidelines of what has been presented to us from the CDC. Just want to remind parents that are listening this evening of the following things that we will have in place First of all, just need your cooperation in the fact of if your child or student is not feeling well, please do not have them come to school. I mean, that's just the utmost number one on our list of mitigation of anything, is the fact that if you are not feeling well, please do not come to school. Please do not come and participate in extracurricular activities. That will be a tremendous help to us. Next, we're asking parents this year if your son or daughter is not feeling well, that their temperature is taken at home, and not to come to school at any time if you have a fever. Also, it is federal mandated that when you're riding one of our school buses, that you will need to be wearing a face covering, a mask. That is a federal mandate, and it's been established that school buses are public transportation. Also, just to remind you that face coverings are recommended, but are not required to be worn by students or employees at this time. Again, any of these items could change at this point, depending on any cases that we get in school. We will remain keeping students socially distanced to the utmost of our ability. We'll continue to space folks out in the multi-purpose room at lunchtime for the elementary. We will add tables and chairs to the hallway as we did last year at the high school. We will continue to do contact tracing. So again, asking parents and guardians this evening, if any student has tested positive for COVID, that you actually would contact any administrator here at the building so that we can go through the proper procedures of doing contact tracing. Again, we will we'll have students quarantine again if we have positive cases. We'll follow the protocol that is set forth by the Department of Health because we'll be in communication with them just as we were last year. With that, Chromebooks, every student will be given a Chromebook again this year to allow that student to remain working on their classwork if they should be quarantined. So those are all kinds of things that we have in place that we will continue. And again, I understand and I know the biggest question and debate all the time is face masks. So at this point, we will open school with the option of wearing face covering. I just want you to know that the Pennsylvania Department of Education has not established a grid, so to speak, of when schools should close for a short period of time. But I will tell you, our gauge was last year that if we had 5 cases within a building within that 14-day window, that we would move to remote learning. So we will continue with that. So just parents, please ask and beg your sons and daughters to do the simple things that we ask them to do. Big thing, don't come to school sick. Wash your hands throughout the school day. Just simple things that will help us. Because if we do get to the situation we have 5 or more cases in a building, we will go to remote learning. You may ask, well, how many days will that happen? It could average anywhere from 1 to 5 days, depending on the cases that we have. So again, just ask for your cooperation as we go through the school year. We know the best place for your sons and daughters to be is here in this school getting in-person instruction. And that is our utmost goal. But again, we need your cooperation to follow with the health and safety plan that we've established. And if you have any questions, please call myself, any administrator. But again, asking parents for your cooperation. Heaven forbid, should anyone in your household test positive for COVID, please contact us just to allow us to go through the contact tracing protocol. A couple other things that I want to mention before getting into agenda items. Again, Chromebooks, we have issued letters out to all households along with the agreement for our Chromebooks. Every student will receive a Chromebook. Everyone should receive in the mail by now a letter asking for the student agreement to be signed. Also in there, insurance information that parents could sign up for insurance for those Chromebooks. Please, if you could have those sent back in, we would appreciate it because that helps alleviate all the other things we do at the beginning of the year. Other things that have happened so far, I have to say thanks to Mrs. Zeglin as she had planned and established 4 weeks of summer camp at the elementary. Just completed the second round of a 2-week period today. And I know that there was a lot of prizes and things given out today that she went and gathered and established. A lot of work went into making sure that we established 4 weeks of summer camp for students. So hats off to her, hats off to all the students. So if this does help with anyone and their thinking, each time there was 50 to 60 students here, along with faculty and staff with those students. And again, had no identification of anyone with a positive case throughout that entire time. So other things that have been taking place, football has been practicing this week. Band camp has taken place this week. Again, we're fingers crossed, we're running smoothly. Other items that we want to mention, next week, August 16th and 17th is pre-K camp. August 17th, kindergarten coming in. Also, August 18th is kindergarten classroom visits. Also, August 16th, want to keep in mind if you're at the high school and you're an athlete, physical forms need to be turned in. Also want to remind you that on August 19th, 6th grade will be here for orientation, along with, I apologize, on August 19th, 6th grade orientation during the day, and then with their parents at night on August 19th at 6:30. Also on August 19th is the district's comprehensive planning meeting. Anyone's welcome to come, even though we have folks identified. If there's anyone out there that would want to participate, just give me a call. We'll certainly welcome you. And then I also want to note that the first day for employees back for the school year is Monday, August 23rd. First student day for students here at Penns Manor is on Thursday, August 26th. I do want to emphasize that the first day for ICTC, though, is on Wednesday, August 25th. So ICTC students will actually go to the ICTC one day ahead of us bringing students in here. We will establish 3 locations for the bus to pick students up. We'll establish a bus on August 25th to pick up at Penn Run Fire Hall here at the school, and then also in Clymer for students to be taken to ICTC on their first day, which again, August 25th. Also want to mention, we welcome Karen Wirtz. Karen is our new cafeteria manager. Metz is still with us, contract still in place, just switching of the manager. So we want to welcome her. She was actually here starting this week and getting to know the ladies today when Mrs. Zeglin had established a picnic day for all the students that were in summer camp and parents. Just hats off to Karen coming in for the first week, and we loaded her with a lot of things. So thanks to Karen. Agenda items this evening, asking under Budget and Finance Committee, we're asking you to approve a Catapult Learning Agreement. That agreement's with Seeds of Faith. Again, just reminding you that that's Title I funds that's used, and Title Fund ones for private schools goes through us. So if we have students attending any private school, which we do at Seeds of Faith, we're asking you to approve a Catapult Learning Service Agreement with for students at Seeds of Faith for $2,968.14. Under athletics this evening, we're asking you to approve the hiring of Mr. Rick Mazie as our girls basketball junior high head coach. Also asking you to accept a couple resignations under athletics. First is their girls assistant track coach, Lee Kazemchek. Also asking you to accept the resignation of head softball coach, which is James Smith, and asking you to accept the resignation of girls junior high volleyball coach volleyball assistant coach 2, which is Maddie Weaver. And again, we will advertise for those positions. And also under athletics, asking for approval of one volunteer, and that would be Reese McCombs helping with junior high football. Under transportation, since it's August, we're asking you to approve all the vehicles that Tri-County will use for the school year. We're asking you to approve all the drivers the Tri-County will use for the year. And we do have all the bus schedules and routes here in the office, if anyone wants to take a look at those. So they're on file here at the office. Letters will be going out tomorrow to all students. So again, Chromebook letters went out. Next that's coming home is the letter identifying all transportation, picking up time, dropping off at home. All those letters will be sent out tomorrow. So parents should be looking for those at the beginning of next week. Under policies, we're asking you to approve the threat assessment policy, which we had first reading last month. Also, moving down to new business, asking you to approve a list of folks. You can see as we go through the agenda, we're asking for approval of all kinds of areas, guest teacher, substitute teachers, substitutes support staff, detention monitors, after-school tutoring, high school monitoring, and also our cyber school instructors. Also under new business, asking you to approve an agreement with Giddings to do a consulting service for us at $1,499. Asking you to approve an employee retirement resignation, Mrs. Bizzaro, effective October 1st. Want to thank Mrs. Bizzaro for her service of 35 years here in the district. Also want or request approval of unpaid leave for a teacher request for that. Also asking for your approval to hire Amy Dalby as our special ed education supervisor. Also asking you to approve pay scale increase for 3 teachers this evening. And that is that these individual teachers are moving from instructional 1 to instructional 2. So let me describe what happens in that process. So a teacher typically will graduate from a university with a 4-year degree, a bachelor's degree. Within the next 3 to 6 years, a teacher will work on going through 24 additional credits. Plus, they must have to have 3 years of satisfactory teaching rating in order to apply for instructional 2. So all 3 of these teachers have completed those additional 24 credits, have completed successfully 3 years of teaching. And so it is time for them to be moved from that instructional 1 column over into the pay scale of the contract. But those are the requirements that they must have completed in order to make that happen. Just individual motions because actually PDE is having a little, taking quite a bit of time to process those. So we want the permission as they process those that we have the authority then to advance them. Also asking approval this evening to hire Amy, to appoint Amy Mountain as the teacher mentor for Mr. Snyder, who is the most recent hired elementary teacher. Also asking you to approve agreement with Dr. Parks. He does all the medical reviews of any of our students' IEPs that has anything to do with medical. He reviews those and the cost is $8 per student. Also asking you to approve the hiring of Carrie Patterson as our VOAG resource person for the year at $10 an hour, not to exceed 1,000 hours throughout the school year. And then we also have a FMLA request from a support staff member, also asking for your approval. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hardesty.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston. Go on. I see we have no old business, nothing to bring up.
That is correct.
All right, we'll move on to our committee reports.
I have nothing this evening, Mr. Hardesty.
Thank you kindly. Mrs. Williams, Curriculum Committee, have anything to report?
There's nothing this evening, Mr. Hardesty, but I'm having a very hard time hearing you.
Thank you for that. Is that a little better? It's my finger. All right, thank you very much. Number 14, Budget and Finance Committee, Catapult Learning. I move to approve an agreement with Catapult Learning LLC for the 2021-2022 school year as part of the district's Title I non-public services at Seeds of Faith Academy in the amount of $2,968.14. We'll need a second.
I'll second.
Thank
I have a
you.
motion by Mr. Hardesty and a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Questions or concerns? Let's have a roll call.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, Mr. Polinick is excused today, but I see there's not a buildings and grounds report. Perhaps Mr. Johnston or Mr. Dalton, one of you bring us up to date on some summer activities that we've had done around the buildings, et cetera.
Sure. And Mr. Dalton, I'll go ahead and you can chime in if I miss anything. So over the summer, a couple of the projects just to highlight that we've taken care of. Just to remind everyone, you may have heard us talking about that we had a water leak and a water line from our high school to our concession stand. We have determined where that leak is located. That has been repaired. You'll also recall that the board had approved doing an electrical renovation located between the high school and the stadium approximately a year back. That work is all completed. So if you take a look back at the stadium, you'll see all the electrical lines are now underground. That project is also complete. You'll also see that you approved for seal coating to be done to a large portion of our parking lot along with line painting. That's completed. We also have replaced flooring in one high school classroom. That project is also complete. So those are the highlighted things that's taken place, along with all the other regular cleaning of the full facility. Hats off again to all of our maintenance and cleaners because they have done a lot of work. And what I mean by that is trying to get the building ready for as much as we've used the building this summer. And we've used it throughout the entire summer, not as much, more so than any other summer that we have. So they have kept up with us. And we appreciate all the work that they've done. Anything else that you want to add, Mr. Dalton?
No, you pretty much touched on everything, Mr. Johnston. We're just in the final stages of finishing up our gym floor waxing for the summer. We'll have both gyms back open on Monday morning, and just in the final stages of getting all the classrooms ready. We'll be ready by the end of next week.
Thank you. Mr. Dalton, on the electrical work done, you had indicated that the equipment was fairly old, were replaced. Do you have any update on that? Did you find anything newer than 30 years old?
Pretty much not. Everything down there was in the 1965 to 67 vintage, and it was due for an upgrade, and we were able to do that as planned. And other than a couple setbacks with some equipment not showing up timely, we got everything in place. It's ready to go, and we tested the lights the other night, and everything's working great.
Thank you very kindly, and thank everyone for their hard work. Athletic Committee, Mr. Larch.
Yes, we have a couple items. I'd like to make a motion to hire Richard Mazie as the girls basketball junior high head coach, pending all clearances and required training at a salary of $4,068.44 as per the current collective bargaining agreement between the Penns Manor Area District and the Penns Manor Education Association dated August 1st, 2019 to July 31st, 2022.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Larch and a second by Mrs. Tate.
Questions or concerns? Roll call, please, Mr. Muscatello.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, 16B, accept the resignation of girls assistant track coach. I'd like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Lee Kazumchek, an assistant track coach, and to grant the administration permission to post and advertise for this position.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Mr. Larch and a second by Mrs. Dalton.
Questions or concerns? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch.
Yes.
Mr. Polinick, Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
16C, accept the resignation of head softball coach. I'd like to make the motion to accept the resignation of James Smith, head softball coach, and to grant the administration permission to post and advertise for this position.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Larch and a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Any questions or concerns?
Generator just kicked on. Setting it up.
Roll call?
Sure. Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
16D, accept the resignation of girls junior high volleyball assistant coach 2. I'd like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Maddie Weaver as girls junior high volleyball assistant coach 2, and to grant the administration permission to post and advertise for this position.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Larch and a second by Mrs. Smiley.
Questions or concerns? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
16E, approve sports volunteer. I'd like to make a motion to approve the following sports volunteers for the 2021-22 school year, pending the receipt of all current clearances, cardio, and impact testing, and the coaching education courses as required by PIAA. Reese McCombs.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Larch and a second by Mrs. Tate.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And that's all I have, Mr. Hardesty.
Thank you, Mr. Larch.
Thank you.
In Transportation Committee, Mrs. Tate.
Yes, I have three things tonight. 17A, vehicle approval for the 2021-22 school year. I'd like to make the motion to approve the vehicles of Tri-County Transportation for the 2021-22 school year as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Tate and a second by Mrs. Smiley.
Questions or concerns? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, 17B, approved drivers for the 2021-22 school year. I'd like to make the motion to approve the bus drivers and substitutes for Tri-County Transportation as per the attached list for the 2021-22 school year.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Tate and a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Any questions or concerns? Roll call.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
17C, approved bus schedules and routes for the 2021-22 school year. I would like to make the motion to approve the 2021-22 tentative bus schedules and routes for Tri-County Transportation as presented to the district's administration by Tri-County Transportation. The complete list of schedules and routes will be on file in the district office for review.
I will second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Tate and a second by Mr. Larch.
Questions or concerns? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes,
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
and that's all I have, Mr. Hardesty.
Thank you, Mrs. Tate. You certainly lucked out. I'll see if we can get the VIN numbers listed again for next year. All right, policies. Approved policy 236.1 threat assessment. May we have a motion to approve policy 236.1 threat assessment as presented? All board policies appear on the district's website.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Larch and a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Any correspondence, Mr. Johnston?
We have none this evening, Mr. Hurst.
All right, thank you. Under new business, we're going to go to 20A, grant guest teacher list for the 2021-2022 school year. May we have a motion to approve the following guest teachers pending receipt of all guest teacher certifications from the IU for the 2021-2022 school year. Gregory Marsh, Susan Morris, Grace Peace, Carol Viber, Abby Shalinsky, and Rebecca Hodak.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Dalton and a second by Mrs. Tate.
Questions or concerns? Roll call, Mr. Muscatello.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We have a list of substitutes to approve for the 2021-2022 school year. May we have a motion to approve the following day-to-day substitutes pending receipt of all current clearances for the 2021-22 school year. Teachers, Tina Busavicki, early childhood N through 3, Rebecca Frederick, math 7 to 12, Dr. Nicholas Hudak, music, Aaron Keith, music, James Clapp, social studies 7 to 12, Kevin Rebuck, vocational instruction, drafting and equivalency, James Smaltlack, math 7 to 12, and Lauren Smith, early childhood. Under support staff, we have Louette Becerro, instructional assistant and secretary, Diana Bennett, monitor, instructional assistant, Goldie Burns, instructional assistant, cafeteria or cleaner, Tina Janosko, secretary and cafeteria, Nancy Kazumchuk, secretary, Sarah Naylor, elementary cafeteria, Annette Peach, cleaner and cafeteria, Kayleen Wrestler, instructional assistant, secretary and cafeteria, and Connie Trinkley, instruction assistant and secretary. So we need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Larch and a second by, was that Mrs. Tate? Thank you.
Questions or concerns? Roll call.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams, I think that was a yes. Mrs. Smiley. I'm
Yes.
sorry, Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
20C, approved detention monitors. May we have a motion to hire the following as detention monitors for the 2021-2022 school year at the compensated rate of $40 per hour as per the current collective bargaining agreement between the Penns Manor Area School District and the Penns Manor Education Association dated August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2022. High school after-school detention, Mrs. Tomey, Mr. Lowry, Mrs. Donatelli. Elementary after-school detention, Mrs. Ludwig. High school Saturday detention, Mr. Lowry and Mrs. Donatelli.
I'll make the motion. I'll second it.
I have a motion by Mrs. Eckenrode and a second by Mrs. Dalton.
Questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
20D, approved after-school tutoring instructors. May we have a motion to hire the following as after-school tutoring instructors for the 2021-2022 school year at the compensated rate of $40 per hour as per the collective bargaining agreement between the Penns Manor Area School District and the Penns Manor Education Association dated August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2022. High school tutoring, Mrs. Tomey and Mr. Lowry. Elementary tutoring, Ms. Deptola, Mrs. Brody, Mrs. Buterball, Mrs. Ludwig, Mrs. Ray, Mrs. Messina, Ms. Matko, and Mr. Kazumchek.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Mrs. Tate and a second by Mrs. Dalton.
Any concerns? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
yes,
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
20C or E, approve high school morning monitors. May we have a motion to approve the following employees as high school monitors with the starting time at 7:15 and with the quitting time no later than 2:50 for the 2021-2022 school year. These positions are at no additional compensation. Ms. Tomey, Mrs. Kessler, Mr. Antonazzi, Mr. Schobert, Mrs. Kirsch, support staff, Mrs. Wallace, support staff, Ms. Decker, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Lowry, Mrs. Gibson, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Stewart, Mr. Karoff, and Mr. Zajac.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Eckenrode and a second by Mr. Larch.
Questions or concerns? Roll call?
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
yes,
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
If I can digress a minute, Mr. Johnston, back on 20B was our teachers and support staff. How does that compare to what it was when you were principal or whatnot, the numbers? And of course, I'm asking that because I know our numbers are down, but I thought everybody would like to hear our issues there.
Sure. Numbers are way down for any of our substitute positions. So that if there's anyone listening and you are a individual out there with a 4-year degree and could be a guest teacher for us, we would be glad to have you. So please call me. Also, if you're a individual out there with a teacher certification, we will also be glad to have you in. And again, all of our support staff positions. So we will definitely use you. You won't be on a list and not used because our list and it has dropped tremendously.
Thank you. 20F, approve the PMACA, the Penns Manor Area Cyber Academy instructors. May we have a motion to approve the following teachers as Penns Manor Area Cyber Academy instructors to teach core subjects in grades 9 through 12 and elective courses 7 through 12 during the 2021-22 school year. Teachers hired for subject areas will be paid a stipend as per the collective bargaining agreement between the Penns Manor Area School District and the Penns Manor Education Association dated July 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2022. Mr. Schobert, Mr. Antonazzi, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Lowry, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Packer, and Mrs. Stewart. Need a
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Tate and a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
yes,
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
20G, approval Gettings agreement for consulting services. May we have a motion to approve an agreement with Gettings to perform security and threat preparedness services and to develop a comprehensive threat preparedness manual at the cost of $1,499 for a one-year agreement.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Mr. Larch and a second by Mrs. Dalton.
Mr. Muscatello is our school safety and security coordinator. Explain to us, or to our listeners, why we must have this consultation completed.
Sure. In 2018, Act 44 was passed, which established not only the school and safety security coordinator position, it also established certain requirements of districts, one of them being a risk and vulnerability assessment. In that risk and vulnerability assessment, the Act established two criteria that must be addressed in the risk and vulnerability assessment. And I'm just going to read those to you so you know what they are. In assessing the vulnerabilities of a school or school entity, an assessor must include discussions with local law enforcement agencies that are primarily responsible for protecting and securing the school, and discussions with school entities' employees in their assessment. It also requires that the physical assessment be conducted during calendar months when the school is in session and consists of an evaluation of the school entity's structural facilities and surrounding property. This evaluation must include a review of the school entity's existing school safety and security plan and a review of the school entity's existing plans for crisis response and mitigation. With that being said, we did have a sort of a risk and vulnerability assessment done. It was done only on the high school building in 2017. So since 2018, when this act was created, we've not had one done across the entire district, and we've not had one done to the depth of Act 44. When the act was created, there was a huge backlog because at the time, the only entity that could do the risk and vulnerability assessments was the state police. They've now approved private companies, including Giddings, who's also our armed daytime security company, to do these types of assessments. So that's why we're contracting with them.
Thank you very kindly. Any other questions or concerns? Roll call.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
20H, approve employee retirement resignation. May we have a motion to accept with regret the retirement resignation of Luette Becerro as an instructional assistant effective October 1st, 2021.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Eckenrode and a second by Mr. Larch.
Any questions or concerns? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mrs. Becerro. As Mr. Johnston pointed out, you have 35 years with our district, and just want to thank you for your time. 20I, approve unpaid leaves of absence request. May we have a motion to approve the request of employee 891 for leave under Article 9, unpaid leaves of absence, Section A of the current collective bargaining agreement between the Penns Manor Area District and the Penns Manor Area, or the Penns Manor Education Association, dated August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2022, with a tentative commencement date of October 13, 2021, and with the anticipated return to work date of January 3rd, 2022, provided, however, that such unpaid leave of absence shall not exceed 12 months as provided for under Article 9, Section A of the CBA, and with the understanding that the employee intends to utilize sick leave as provided by the CBA, also to grant the administration permission to advertise for a long-term substitute if necessary.
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Mrs. Tate and a second by Mrs. Dalton.
Questions or concerns? Roll call?
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
yes,
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Saffron is our solicitor. We explain to folks why we sometimes use names and sometimes we use numbers when we're talking employees, students, et cetera.
Right, because of the HIPAA Act, we have to be very careful not to indicate an employee's name or the condition for which they're asking for. So we use the employee number in order to track that through our system. And that's the reason.
Thank you very kindly. 20J, hire special education supervisor. May we have a motion to hire Amy Dalby as the district special education supervisor effective August 23rd, 2021 at the annual salary of $65,000. The terms and conditions of employment will be subject to an Act 93 agreement.
I'll make the motion. Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Smiley and a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Questions or concerns? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
yes,
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Johnston, this is a new position at this time for us. Would you explain how we've handled it last year and a few years before and then prior to that?
So just want to give an explanation of why we're hiring our special ed supervisor. In the past, we've looked towards Aaron IU 28 and purchased the service through them. And now we are shifting to our own administrator here at the district that will be here 5 days a week.
All right. And the Aaron unit provided, was it 3 or 4 days a week?
3.
Okay.
Right.
And this will help with all of our special education, IEPs,
Sure.
et cetera.
Yep. So major responsibilities of this individual. We have approximately 170 students that have an IEP, individualized educational plan. Also, we have about approximately another 32 students with a GIEP, and we have probably another, I'm wanting to think in my head, about another 18 to 20 with 504 plans. And that individual and Mrs. Dolby will be responsible for monitoring all those. Again, this year, we are under state audit in February. So as she comes in, she will hit the ground running.
Thank you very kindly. Did we vote? Roll call,
Yes.
please. We did?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You did?
We did.
No, I did.
20K, I thought it was just me, Mrs. Eckenrode. 20K, approved pay scale advancement, Mrs. Horwath. May we have a motion to advance Carly Horwath from the level of instructional 1, step 3 to bachelor's plus 20, step A for the current collective bargaining agreement between the Penns Manor Area School District and the Penns Manor Education Association dated August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2022. The annual salary of this step is $57,392 and will be effective on August 23rd, 2021.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Eckenrode and a second by Mr. Larch.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
yes,
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
20L, approved teacher mentor for the new elementary teacher. We're looking for a motion to approve Mrs. Amy Mountain as the mentor teacher for the recently hired elementary teacher as per the induction program of the district for compensatory time.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Mrs. Tate and a second by Mrs. Dalton.
Roll call?
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Johnson, why don't you let everybody know what we mean when we say induction program?
Sure. So the induction program is required for each new teacher in our district to go through. It's part of our actual comprehensive plan. So our comprehensive plan is made up of a number of plans. The induction plan, the professional development plan, and a number of others. So the induction plan is just a portion which the brand new teacher needs to go through to complete tasks such as meeting individuals in all areas of our district. And they are side by side with that mentor teacher as they go through that.
Thank you very kindly. 20M, approve agreement with Dr. Parks for the IEP medical reviews. May we have a motion to approve an agreement with Dr. J. Lindsay Parks, OD, to provide the required medical review of each individualized education program of students who are eligible for the Access Program to confirm services are needed at a rate of $8 per each medical authorization form he signs as a result of each IEP that he examines as presented. There is no increase in cost from the previous year. Motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Larch, a second by Mrs. Tate.
Roll call.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
20N, approve VOAG resource person. May we have a motion to appoint Carrie Patterson as the community resource person for the 2021-2022 school year. The hourly rate for this position is $10 per hour for 1,000 hours.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Tate and a second by Mrs. Eckenrode.
Any questions? Let's have a roll call.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
20O, approve FMLA request. May we have a motion to approve the request of employee 528 for leave under the provisions of Article 12, unpaid leaves of absence, Section 5, family and medical leave of the current collective bargaining agreement between the Penns Manor Area School District and the Penns Manor Education Support Professionals, the CBA, and the provisions of the Family Medical Leave Act of 1993, FMLA, and subject to the terms of the FMLA and the current CBA for the period of time not to exceed 12 work weeks.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Eckenrode, a second by Mr. Larch.
Any concerns? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
20P, approved pay scale advancement, Mrs. Smago. May we have a motion to advance Mrs. Elizabeth Smago pending the receipt of Mrs. Smago's Instructional 2 certificate from PDE from the level of Instructional 1, Step 4 to Bachelor's Plus 20, Step A of the current collective bargaining agreement between the Penns Manor Area School District and the Penns Manor Education Association dated August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2022. The annual salary of this step is $57,392 and will be effective on August 23rd, 2021.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Dalton, a second by Mrs. Tate.
Questions, concerns? Roll call.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
yes,
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, 20Q, approved pay scale advancement. Mrs. Henderson, may we have a motion to advance Mrs. Olivia Henderson pending the receipt of Mrs. Henderson's Instructional 2 certificate from PDE from the level of Instructional 1, Step 3 to Master Step A of the current collective bargaining agreement between Penns Manor Area School District and the Penns Manor Education Association dated August 1st, 2019 through July 31st, 2022. The annual salary of this step is $59,083 and will be effective on August 23rd, 2021. Motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Eckenrode, a second by Mrs. Tate. I'm sorry, Mrs. Smiley. I didn't look up.
Questions or concerns? Roll call.
Mrs. Dalton,
Yes.
Mrs. Eckenrode,
Yes.
Mr. Hardesty,
Yes.
Mr. Larch,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
yes,
Mrs. Tate,
Yes.
Mrs. Smiley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We have no requests for field trips, so we'll go on to yes, 22 upcoming meetings. Comprehensive Planning Committee, August 19, at 6:30 in this room. Committee meeting, our next committee meeting is September the 2nd at 7 PM here. Business meeting September the 9th at 7 PM in the district boardroom. Do we have any other business to come before the board this evening? If not, this meeting is adjourned.
Mr. Hardesty, before you
Yes.
adjourn,
Yes,
you want to have a
please.
discussion about bring everyone back in?
Yes,
starting
absolutely.
September?
Thank you. Do we want, no, I don't know if I want to phrase it that way. Is it time?